Hey superstars, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about mindsets. There are positive mindsets and there are negative mindsets. What's your mindset? How do you approach life? How do you look at things? Are you a half empty person or a glass half full kind of person? Are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? People who have positive mindsets usually have greater life satisfaction and they're usually happier. People with negative mindsets are usually grumpier, crankier, and aren't as happy in life and just kind of get by. They're often bitter as well. It's really not a good way to live. However, mindsets are really just what it says, the way our mind is set. We learn our mindsets usually from the families we grew up with. If our families are optimistic and positive, we usually learn the same thing. If our families are negative and pessimistic and cynical, then that's usually what we learn. I've met people who have negative mindsets, and I really try not to keep them in my social circle because they try to bring other people down. And when they're cynical about something, they'll say, well, it's not that I'm cynical, I'm just a realist. I've responded to somebody once saying they were a realist. I responded to somebody who said this to me once by saying, well, you may be a realist, but perception is reality. And my perception is really good, so my reality is really good. They weren't too happy with it because, again, their cynicism brought it back to them that they're not allowed to be happy. Isn't that a sad thing that people think they truly don't deserve happiness? When in reality, we all do. And in reality, we all can create it whenever we want to. Positive mindsets are something that can be learned. That's the good news. Just like we learned how to have a negative mindset, or we learned as children how to have a positive one. If you don't have a positive mindset now, you can learn it. However, I'm going to warn you, if you're watching this with a negative mindset, you're probably cynical and saying, why would I want to learn that? It's better for me the way I am. And trust me on this one. It may feel like that now. But as you switch, you'll start to see that life gets a whole lot better when you adopt a positive mindset. Our mindsets are basically brain cells and our neural pathways and how they function. And so changing any behavior, any mode of thought means to change neural pathways. And it's sometimes hard to do that because our brains are designed to use the neural pathways for efficiency in thinking. So think about tying your shoes. You don't have to tell yourself, pull the laces, cross them, pull one over, flip it over. You don't have to do that because you have a neural pathway already set where you can just do that without thinking about it. That's a neural pathway. So are our neural pathways to reacting to the world around us. I'm going to share an experience that I had recently. A couple years ago, we were told that our jobs would no longer be available. And instantly, you can imagine how people felt. There was a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear, and people didn't know what to do. A lot of people became frozen. I took a deep breath because I didn't like that news either, and I said, well, the universe must be telling me it's time to do something else. And so what did I do? I immediately enrolled in another master's program. And truly, that's why I'm speaking to you here today. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be making these videos. I wouldn't be living where I'm living or living the life I'm living. So because I looked at something coming to me with more of a positive mindset as an opportunity rather than a burden, I made the choices to use that opportunity to better my life. That is the primary difference between a positive mindset and a negative mindset. People with negative mindsets, I gotta say, they lost their jobs because they kept waiting for something better to happen and they didn't move for themselves and they stayed where they were. And that is part of the problem with the negative mindset is you don't look for growth, you don't look for change, and you don't welcome it. So think about that for a minute. I once had a friend, I said once because we're not friends anymore. We went to lunch and I just got a new dog. And I said to her, I said, hey, I got a new dog. Do you want to see a picture? And she looked at me and said, you need a dog like you need a hole in your head. And I thought, oh my gosh, You can't even be happy that I got a dog. You can't be happy that I rescued a dog from the pound. You can't be happy that my other dog, who was lonely, now has a new playmate. That's a negative mindset. And if you're one of the people that when somebody else says, hey, my dream is to become a director or an actor or a singer or a rap artist or fill in the blank, and you're the first one to say, oh, that's a really hard way to go, or you should think about something else, you probably have a negative mindset. Think about that. And if you're doing it to other people, guess what? I'm sure you're doing it to yourself, which is even worse. So think about your mindsets. How do you approach the day? When things come to you, do you approach them with optimism? Or do you approach them with pessimism and negativity? I once had a student who had a negative mindset who said, you're faking it. You're faking being positive all the time. Nobody can ever be that happy. Everybody has problems. Of course we all have problems. I have my problems like all the rest of you. I just choose to approach them differently. And because how I approach them differently, I create my happiness all the time. So, superstars, I hope that you take a good look this week at mindsets and that you start to create positive mindsets. Now be brilliant.